All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Ezekiel chapter 27, verses 23 to 36. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us in Ezekiel chapter 27 at the part we're in now. For all the context we're getting about Tyrus, and the more we're going to learn about what's going to happen to him, or what other details we might get of them. This will still be a good Bible study. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So today's summary is going to be because there's only one thing I really need to say available to them, and how they just going down the list of how amazing they were. Basically pointing out why from the Bible study before that, why it's so crazy that they would want to sit here and try to take advantage of Israel's downfall when they already have so much going on, and it makes sense why God would punish them for all that. So I'll go ahead and switch it over to our first section today in 27 in verse 23 so that Charles can start. And go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
I'll be reading Ezekiel 27, verses 23 to 27. I'll give it a couple seconds. Verse 23. Haran, or it doesn't have the H in it. Kavran. That's interesting. Kavran is on the phonetic with a K. Yeah, very interesting. Quran and Kane and Eden, the merchants of Sheba, Ashur, Kilamad, were thy merchants. These were thy merchants in all sorts of things, in blue clothes and broidered work, and in chests of rich apparel, bound with cords, and made of cedar among thy merchandise. The ships of Tarshish did sing of thee in thy market, and thou was replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas. Thy rowers have brought thee into great waters. The east wind hath broken thee in the midst of the seas. Thy riches and thy fares, thy merchandise, thy mariners and thy pilots, thy caulkers and the occupiers of thy merchandise, and all thy men of war that are in thee, and in all thy company which is in the midst of thee, shall fall in the midst of the shall fall into the midst of the seas in the day of thy ruin. Here it is. I was waiting. Oh, we finally got to your end. So in my section from 23 to 26, we're still talking about these merchants, the merchants, these great merchants that are in all of these, they're doing great things. Great broidered work is like custom work where the different colors, different designs. Um, Cords that are made or bound with cords and made of cedar. Um, yeah, no, I'm just gonna keep it like that. From 23 to 26, we're talking about merchants, all of these great things about these merchants that they're selling, and merchandise and all that, selling, buying all of that. Um, Ships of Tarshish singing in the market, singing about how glorious all Tyrus and all this is. Rowers rowing in the great waters, all these great things, right? We get to 27 and it breaks down the riches, fares, merchandise, so the products, mariners, so not what did I say the other day when we first talked about that? Um, give me a second. I'm thinking sailors. There we go. Sailors.
Good.
Um, sailors. Pilots. Oh, just another word for shipmaster. Sailors. The caulkers were the people that what did I bring up? Let me think. I brought it up in that first Bible study when I missed it. Um like the caulk of the building, they fill the gaps, fill the holes. The men that fill the gaps or they fill the holes. And the men of war. It's a list of these men. All of them are gonna fall in the seas. In the day of Tyrus's ruin. Oh, that sucks. Oh man. I'm just picturing it in my head. I see a bunch of people singing and Tyrus, Tyrus, and then a wave comes and then flips their ship upside down. Now they're not funny, but I mean they're in the sea and there's no helicopter to come swoop you up. Once this is old times. So once your ship's flipped and you're underwater and the ship's bringing you down, you pretty much drown. You pretty much it sucks for you. That's what I'm thinking. That's the image I got in my head with verse 27.
Exactly.
Oh man. And that's all I got.
Good.
Now we're starting and that's funny.
All right. Now, does anybody have any comments or questions about that section as we go to section 2? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right, then Thomas, go ahead when you're ready.
1 second. All right, Rick. Hold on 1 second, guys.
Just one?
All right, we're reading Ezekiel chapter 27, verses 28 through 32. Give it a couple of seconds. And the suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of the pilots, and all the hand, and all the handle the, and all that handle the oar, the mariners, and all the pilots of
Not
the sea,
aura, over. An
oar.
oar. Yeah, an oar.
I'll see what that is later. All that handle the oar, the mariners, and all the pilots of the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land, and shall cause their voice to be heard against thee, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast upon dust upon their heads. They shall they shall wallow themselves in the ashes, and they shall make themselves utterly bald from thee for thee, and gird them with sackcloth. And they shall weep for thee with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. And in their wailing they shall take upon a lamentation for thee, and a lament over thee, saying, what city is like Tyrus, like the destroyed in the midst of the sea? Okay, so now we got this actually taking place. And let's get into it. 28. The suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of the pilots. So let me just make sure it's not the same suburbs.
One problem you made a mistake on.
I ain't even started yet.
Well, you did.
Go
You said
ahead.
one thing.
I'm
You
joking. Go ahead.
said that and everything's actually happening now. This hasn't happened yet.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Hmm.
A suburb that is open country.
Now, if you were to say, now we're listing what's going to happen now, the listing of what's going to happen now is crazy. Then you'd be right. But when you say it's actually happening, it's different.
Okay. So suburbs pretty much like open land.
Close.
Common land. It says common land, open land.
Yeah. Common land, open land. So it's like in the in between. Think of a suburb today. What's a suburb?
I'm thinking of like where the wealthy people reside.
No, that's not what a suburb is today. There are three kinds of living areas. There are urban areas, suburbs, and then rural.
Okay,
And
so
what
urban is
they
like located like the hood. Then we got the rural,
no,
obviously. Go ahead.
urban is where everybody is gathered together. Think of it as a comparison of population size. So the urban area is where everybody is cultivated together, almost like coagulated, like a blood clot, like they're all in one spot. Then
Oh, I
you got suburbs where there's a little more space, a little bit more spread out, not as many people in one specific area. And then you got rural where there's dang near nobody. Same
so
thing in
suburb.
comparison of cities, like the main city, somewhat farmland, straight farmland.
So suburb, they got a little extra land to space them out from each other.
Yeah.
Okay,
So like the
so
suburb is like they're close, they're kind of in the city, but they're not part of the city. I'll give you a
yeah,
perfect example of this. Anthem is a suburb of Las Vegas.
I got you. So it says a suburb shall shake at the sound of the cry of the pilots.
Of the pilots?
Sound of the suburb shall shake at the sound of the cry of thy pilots.
Exactly.
So they they pretty much hear him in the distance and they're like concerned.
Concerned ain't the right word.
I'm trying to
I
figure this
I
out.
hear a bunch of well, what are the pilots? Charles brought it up. What are the
Yeah, he was saying
pilots?
it's like another word for the captains of the ship and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's like the captains of the ships and stuff. And they're the suburbs are what? Like they're close to the
Oh,
city, but
oh,
they're not part
I
of the
know what I'm
city.
doing here. So cry isn't always a bad thing.
You said what?
Cry isn't always a bad thing in the Bible.
What do you mean?
Because when I hear cry, I instantly think of like, oh, somebody's stressing, they're going through something, or they're sad, or something of that nature.
Well,
But
cry
then, there-
isn't sadness, period. If you're saying crying, that's the act that shows the emotion of sadness. But well, not necessarily sadness. You could be crying
yeah,
tears of joy. All crying is the tears coming down. But to cry is to call out. It's different.
right.
You never heard of a battle cry?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So then think about what's happening all around and what we know from the context, and then think about what it says. It should be very straightforward and easy to get.
All right, 1 second. Okay, so in 27, just the midst of thee shall fall into the midst of the sea, and a day of the runs, of thy runs. So we have something that's about to take place. We're describing what was about to take place, and 28 is pretty much saying how those pilots, those captains, and everybody that's on the boat, they're crying out like Loki for help. So what's taking place?
Where did it say looking for help?
So I just should just say they're crying out.
Yeah. I mean, you can say screaming, you could say yelling out, you could say calling out, but when
Don't
you
add
say for help,
anything.
why you're adding
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. So they hear the people in the suburbs hear the pilots crying out, and then hold on one second. Read 29, and all
Oh,
that
you
handle
still
the.
didn't explain 28. The suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of the pilot of thy pilots.
So
The only thing that you explained was that the pilots are crying. You completely didn't explain the context at all. You all right? You sound like you're out of it.
just a little tired. That's all.
Are you sitting down?
At the table, yeah.
Stand up.
I can go for that. No.
Seriously, stand up. You need to get your blood flow. You can't be sitting comfortable if you're tired. You're not gonna be able to be focused. You need to shake around, get your blood flow going. You need to be able to think clearly.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in the Strongs right now, looking up.
You don't need the strongs. This is so straightforward, it's crazy. Stand up, shake out your body, like I was saying.
I already did.
Then
All right.
reread it out loud.
The suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of thy pilots.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
So I'm in regards to shake, shall shake. So like kind of like a disruption.
Kind of like a what?
Disruption.
What? Why would it be disruption?
They
Think
in
about think
peace.
about
They
this
they
for a second.
chilling. They chilling in their house, and then all of a sudden they hear this cry.
Yeah, the disruption's not the right word. I mean, if they're shaking, then what does that mean for them? What's their mental state? What's their emotional state?
They're concerned.
That is not the right
Then I
word.
don't know.
That
I
is
do not
okay,
know.
Thomas. If I am shaking in fear, am I concerned?
You could be. That's part of
No,
it.
I'm freaking out. If I'm shaking,
Where does it say they're shaking in fear?
at the sound of the cry of thy pilots.
But where does
So
it say
you
they're shaking in
hear,
fear?
so, well, think about it.
You're adding
You
to it.
see, no, I'm not. Because we just read about the ruin of them, right? In 27. And then the pilots are crying out. Well, if they're crying out and there's the suburbs, it didn't say that the ground was shaking, it said the suburbs were shaking. Well, if the suburbs are shaking, then it's not talking about the land. It's talking about the people of the land. It's talking about the generalization of the land, not
Yeah, I get that.
literally the land. So if you hear a bunch of crying out and you start shaking, what emotion would you be feeling in order to be shaking? Would anger make you shake in that situation? No. Would joy make you shake in that situation? No. There's only one major emotion that would make somebody shake because they hear the sound of somebody crying. I'm not crying, crying out, screaming.
I think there's more than one emotion, but hey, we all got
Name
a different
one
opinion.
other.
Bro, if you heard a cry out, you can be concerned. Like, what was that? You're concerned.
Concerned is okay. What is the concern? What's the emotion behind the concern? Is not an emotion. Concerned is a state of being. You can be concerned and angry. You can be concerned and sad. Concern just means you're thinking about something, that it's on your
Yes.
mind. That doesn't say anything of the emotion. That's why I pointed out the emotion. That's why concerned is not the right word. I'll give you another example. Thomas, if you saw somebody getting stabbed, are you feeling concerned?
A little bit more than that, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah.
That's why concerned is wrong. It's a severity issue, connotation. If I'm concerned about something, if you're concerned about something, it generally does not mean that you are really worried. It's you're just a little bit, just a little teeny bit worried or just a teeny bit thinking about it. But if you're shaking, are you just a teeny bit worried? Are you just a teeny bit thinking about it? No. It has to be really on your mind. It has to be severely in your mind for that to happen. So that's why concern doesn't work.
So they're in fear because they hear the crying out of the pilots.
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't even say they're in fear because I feel like that doesn't match the severity. I would say you'd have to say if you say extreme fear, that would work. If you were to say freaking out, that would work. But remember, like if you're afraid, like I'll give another example. If you saw somebody, if somebody was chasing after you with a machine gun and a machete, and the machete had blood dripping down, and they were shooting at you, are you feeling a little fear?
Extreme fear.
Yeah. So even to say that they're feeling fear, I would say is not accurate because of the severity level. You're not
That's
going to
what you
shake.
initially said, so I was just repeating what you said.
You said what?
That's what you initially said, so I was just repeating what you said.
Well, but when I was saying that, I was explaining the emotion, not the severity. I was
Yeah.
explaining the emotion you would have to feel because the fear has levels. Terrified, that's a strong level. Concerned is a part of fear, one side. But if you're concerned, if that's the level of fear you're having, you're not feeling much fear at all, just a little bit. Hesitant is a level of fear. Not that much though. So there's different levels to fear, just like there's different levels to anger. Remember when we were talking about anger before, and when it said God was raw? Is it okay to say that God is angry? No, because it's not, the connotation is not equivalent to what we would say today. You'd have to say he's pissed or he's extremely angry. That would match equivalent to the level of anger that he has. In the same token here, yeah, fear is the emotion, but you also have to measure out or match the level based on what the word is giving. And if they're shaking because of the fear, it's not enough to just say they're afraid. You have to say something along the lines of they're really afraid, however you want to say it, but it's more, it's a big deal.
I don't know, man. I feel like fear is adding to it. You don't really have context to back that.
Why would they be shaking at the sound of the cry of the pilots in the
Okay, they could
context?
be shaking, but they can be shaking in other ways than just fear.
Name one.
So you're trying to leave it directly as regarding to emotion, but it can be other things.
Name one.
like I did earlier.
No, you said concern.
Yeah, but you're trying to classify strictly as emotion.
No, I said name another one. If it's not from the emotion of fear, why else would they be shaking?
They could be frightened, but that doesn't mean like you're
That's
in
fear.
fear.
Frightened is fear. What are you talking about?
I'm thinking of some others right now.
Okay. If you
You can
heard
be
crying
startled.
often, that's
Doesn't
fear.
mean what?
If you're
You're,
startled from a loud noise, that is a fear. It's not anger.
how is it a fear?
Okay. Some jump scare in a movie. Whoa,
That doesn't
that's
mean that's
fear.
something you fear. Just
That's
because you're jump
literal
scared doesn't mean
fear.
you fear it.
Jump, it's in the term, Thomas. Jump. It doesn't say jump happy. It doesn't say jump anger. Jump scare. It's in the term.
But it's like I fear heights. That is something that carries along with that person. But if
That's
you're
not the
jump
only kind
scared,
of
that's in the
fear.
moment. I'm just giving an example. But like if you're scared, if you got scared of something, that could be just in the moment. That doesn't mean you have fear of that thing.
That's literally what it is. A jump scare. That means it's a fear. It can be a reactionary fear, but it's still a fear.
I digress.
What you're having a hard time dealing with is the distinguish of different types of fear and looking at them as if they're completely different when they're not. For example, a jump scare is an immediate, quick fear. It's not a lingering fear like a fear of heights is. With a fear of heights, depending on the person, it could be debilitating where you can't do nothing. But there's also a fear of heights where, like, actually, I have that fear of heights where it's not debilitating, but you do feel it. I've been up on the stratosphere. I felt fear, but it didn't stop me from doing what I was going to do. I've also been jump scared. I've also jump scared others. There are different kinds of fear. So if you can name something else besides fear that would make someone shake at hearing the crying out of someone, I'm all ears.
I digress.
So are you admitting there isn't one?
I just digress. You know, I didn't say anything else other than that.
Okay. This is something we talked about and dealt with before. You have to be
You know,
willing to admit when you're wrong.
if that's what you want.
It's not a okay, Thomas, we're not gonna go back through that. We're
What?
not gonna do that.
I just said I digress. You're trying to make it into more what it is, bro. Let's
No,
just
no,
move
I'm
on.
not. I'm Thomas, I'm not.
You are.
When you say something that's incorrect and you get corrected,
I
it's
literally
not
just looked up. I
hold on. We're not going through this again.
yeah, go
I
ahead, do
said
your
this
thing.
when you came back.
It's
When
not
you
that
make
I'm
a
trying to tell you.
mistake, uh, okay. When you make a mistake and you get corrected on it, you accept the correction, especially if it's something like this. Like it's not like I'm correcting you saying you're doing horrible or something. It's like I'm giving you literary facts. And I'm even giving you an opportunity to prove yourself. But there's an unwillingness in this moment for you to admit you're wrong. And you're even trying to twist words to make it or twist the situation to make it sound like I just want you to feel wrong. It ain't got nothing to do with the feeling for me. It ain't got nothing to do with that at all. You were incorrect. It's not like you're bad. It's not like you did something horrible, but you're factually incorrect and you don't want to accept it. That's not okay. And then, especially trying to twist the words to make it seem like I just want you to be in the wrong or in something along that lines. That's really not okay. And that's what we went through before. And that's what we would have arguments back and forth about. And I said was not going to happen when you come back. You got to be willing to accept when you're incorrect.
So I'm
And
sitting here looking at the definition, and it's giving me like extended fear. It says it gave me an example. It says farmer fears that he will lose business. That's a long-term thing, and this is straight from the definition.
look up jump scare.
That's different, bro. That's
It's
immediate.
a it's a type of fear. Look up jump scare. And it's going to be something along the lines
It
of
says a
a
sudden, startling
surprise,
moment in
sudden,
immediate
startling. Yeah,
typical
yeah.
horror film or game designed to shock the audience with a loud sound and sudden, often frightening in age or events, an
Exactly.
image or event.
Sudden, often frightening image or event. It's meant to
Yeah.
cause that initial fear. There are many kinds of fear. Lingering fear. Okay, for example, arachnophobia, illogical fear. What makes arachnophobia illogical? It's just the fear of spiders, right? Or irrational. My bad. I said the wrong term. Irrational fear. It becomes an irrational fear when it goes beyond the normal limitations of regular life. For example, arachnophobia can become an irrational fear if you think you see spiders no matter where you are, if you're ever inside of a building. You're just imagining them. Now that's become an irrational fear. That's a level up even above the regular fear of arachnids. So,
So I just asked ChatGPT if fear and scare are the same thing, and it says fear and scare are not always the same. Fear is a broader emotion or feeling, while scare often describes a more immediate response. And that's
yeah,
what I'm thinking in
fear
my
is a
head.
broader emotion.
Right. So it's not. It's yeah.
Scared is part of fear. Fear is broader.
But it just said it's not though the same thing. Not
Oh my
always the same
goodness.
thing. But
Thomas,
I digress,
if
bro.
you
I understand
are,
where you're
if
coming
you
from.
are, hold on. It just said it to you and you're unwilling to accept it. Fear is a broader emotion. That means that scared is still part of it, but fear is more encompassing. So you can be scared and it'll be an initial fear. But a fear could be something where you're not scared at the moment, but it's a general fear that you have. A fear is something can either be an emotion or a mentality, but it means that it's something that makes you afraid, no matter how you do it. A fear of spiders means that if you see a spider or a spider comes around you, it makes you afraid. If you get scared, what happens? You were made afraid. One of them is you're always having that fear, it's always with you. The other one is immediate, quick, and usually not long lasting. But that initial moment is the fear. It's the shock time, that value. That's why look up flight or fight response.
I got you. One sec. The psychological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived threat or stressor, preparing the body to either confront the danger, fight, or escape from it, flight.
Exactly. So you feel a threat. Well, if you're feeling a threat, that's a fear. So you feel a threat, and your response is to either fight or run. But there's still a perceived threat there. That's why it's a fight or flight response.
But if
There's
it's
a whole
fight,
cycle.
do you really fear?
Yes. Mike Tyson will tell you. Boxers will tell you they always feel afraid when they go in the ring. The difference, you know what the difference between a coward and a brave person is? The coward gives in to the fear. The brave person fights in spite of it. You still feel the fear, but that difference is whether or not you push past it. Still that fear there,
Yeah.
still that emotion. Like the only other time when you do fight where it's not about fear is anger or in defense of something you care about. There's many reasons why you fight, but if it's in a flight or fight response, that's a reactionary thing. You feel a threat, you're responding. So that initial reaction is to that feeling of a threat. Well, what is a fear when you really think about it? A fear is you feeling threatened by something, whether it's lingering or immediate. It's that feeling of threat and worry or concern that goes along with it. It can be quick, immediate, it can be long lasting. Depends on the kind of fear. But on both sides, whether quick or long, you still feel it. Like when if you get a jump scare, what happens to your body? Your heart races. You have to look around to see what's going on, or you have to your body reacts in the same way. Even if you're in a movie, you may not physically look around, but you get that jolt of adrenaline from it. That's why some people who are thrill seekers, what are they always going into? Things that would make most people afraid or feel more fear, like roller coasters, like haunted houses, like chasing storms. Because when you feel that fear, it's not just cortisol that releases, it's adrenaline as well. So they're getting high off of the release from the fear. So it's pushing through on that side.
I get
Does
what
that
you're
make sense?
saying. Can I read this to you? And then we can move on. I don't want to hold up the Bible study any longer.
Only if you're willing to discuss it and pick it apart.
That's what we're
Because
doing here. That's exactly
go
what
ahead
we're
then.
doing here.
Go ahead
All
then.
right. It says this verse is part of a. This is from ChatGPT, by the way. It says this verse is part of a laminate for the city of the Tyre, a powerful and wealthy port.
Oh,
Let
you
me just go.
can't. No.
Hold
Let
on.
me say.
Let me just go to it.
Okay.
The suburb. So it breaks down what it's implying. When it says the suburb shall shake, it said this means the surrounding area will be shaken, not just physically, but emotionally and socially, by the destruction of Tyre. And then it says the cry of the pilot. The cries of the pilot ship captain uh, represents mourning and chaos. Their wailing signals to the hold on one second. Signals collapse of the Tyrus once great trading empire. So is this a physical thing happening as well, the shaking that's causing them to drown? Or what?
That is very unlikely based on the context.
I'm all over the place. I'ma just digress. You're
So,
right, Matt. I'm
well, hold
getting
on, hold on.
I
Well,
don't know.
I'm gonna. I told you, only bring it up if you're willing to discuss it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Go back to the last few sections, Charles's section, where we finally got into the part of everything being messed up, right?
You going to it?
Yeah, putting it back
All
on the
right.
screen. After we get into the last part about the merchants, it brings up in 25 about the ships of Tarshish that they sing in their market, and thou wast replenished. So we're talking about a lot of positives, right? And then we go into 26, thy rowers have brought thee into great waters. The east wind has broken thee in the midst of the seas. So you're going into great waters but the east wind is coming through and breaking you. Now, are we talking about rowers literally here?
Just go ahead.
No, that was a question. Are we talking about actual rowers here?
Yeah, well, they're on a boat.
No. Who is the thee?
It's just the rowers that brought thee into great water.
Yeah, who is the thee? Who have we been talking about this entire time?
Tyrus, yeah.
Tyrus. Yes. So, is this literal?
I guess not.
Well, it's not, I guess. It's an impossibility. Can a country have rowers take it out to sea?
No.
So we're in a metaphor right now. And the
Okay.
metaphor is bringing up that that it was brought into great waters. Well, great waters would represent what then? You're in deep waters. You're in a place that's surrounded by water, in an area that's like there's mass amounts of water, something along that line. Then it says the east wind have broken thee in the midst of the sea. So the east wind comes in and you're getting destroyed in the midst of these waters. So that's a representation of you being brought out into a place for your destruction, but not literally, metaphorically. And we've been reading before we read in chapter 27, all in 26, what were we reading about Tyrus? They think that they're
Oh,
perfect.
yeah.
And then all of 27, yeah, you got a lot of reasons to think you're perfect. You had a lot going for you. But now you're being brought into great waters to be destroyed by the east wind. Okay, then let's continue in this metaphor in 27. Thy riches and thy fairs. What were the fairs? That was the areas where they would sell the goods and everything. So all your marketplace and your money, your riches, your manners, your places, your pilots, the people that are would be managing, the captains, the ones that take care of the leaks, and the occupiers of the merchandise, and all your men of war that are in thee, and and in all thy company which is in the midst of thee, shall fall in the midst of the sea in the day of thy ruin. So remember, we're talking about a country here. But it's now we got where all their people are going to fall in the midst of the sea from the ruin, everything they have. Now, there's a possibility that that's literal. That could be the represent from the rowers. But is it likely that that's literal? No, it's literally most likely it's everything's getting destroyed based on the context we have. Again, we're talking about a country here. But let's say,
Yeah.
for example, it was literal, just for argument's sake. It said that they all would be in the middle of the sea when they're destroyed. So if they're in the middle of the sea, the middle of the ocean, and then going back into your portion, is the middle of the ocean anywhere near the suburbs?
No.
So no matter how much they cried, vibrationally even, would their cry make the ground actually shake?
Unless the suburbs is shaking too.
You said what?
Unless the suburbs is shaking too, like actual being destroyed as well.
Thomas, it said it shakes because of their cries.
Just go ahead and explain. I'm confused.
All right. If there's crying, screaming in the middle of the sea, no matter how loud it is, it's not going to impact the ground of the suburbs. Because right by the ocean or right by the sea, that's not even the suburbs. That's the main port
Yeah.
area. So you got the main port area, and then you have to go out of the main city area to get to the suburbs. So you're even further away from the sea. But we didn't see anything of the marketplace being shaken, did we? No.
No, not yet.
We saw everything that, yeah. So we saw that everything they had, if we took that literally, everything that they had is going to be gone in the middle of the sea. But we didn't see that the actual land is gone. We didn't see that the land is gone into the sea. We just saw that everything that they own is and all their people is. So with that in mind, could that cause the suburb to shake? No. That's not even a possibility. It would be different, like with Jericho, where they're yelling right outside the city, right outside the wall, right? It would be different in a situation like that where, okay, you're close enough, okay, but you're in the middle of the sea. That doesn't make sense with the context, and it doesn't make sense with what's happening. We're talking about everything that they have being ruined. Then we get to 28,
But
where it says the suburbs will shake.
I was gonna ask you a question. So, if that's the case, they're in the middle of the sea. How do the people in the suburbs hear them? I'm like not understanding.
You can hear screams from from a long ways away. That doesn't mean that it can impact you
From the
vibrationally.
middle of the sea to the suburbs?
If you've ever been by the ocean, yes. If you've been over in Laguna Woods, not Laguna Woods, Laguna Beach, and somebody's crying in the, like right
Yes.
in the just off the ocean, you can hear them screaming. But when you hear them screaming, do you feel them screaming? No, there's nothing of that. And then keep in mind at 29, and all the pilots of the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land. But we just read in 27 something completely different. If you take it literally, let's go back to 27. Thy riches and thy fares, thy merchandise, thy mariners, and thy pilots. So the pilots is there. And it goes down the list till after it says, and in all thy company, which is in the midst of the sea, shall fall in the midst of the seas in the day of thy ruin. So if it's literal, we got a
Right.
contradiction here. Because one is saying that they're going to fall in the seas when everything is ruined. But then in your section, in verse 29, it says they're going to come off the ships and stand on the land.
That's good.
So if it's talking literally, we have a contradiction here and a problem. But if we look at it
Right.
actually as the metaphor, there is no contradiction. So what would the metaphor be for the last section? Well, when we look at that in verse 27, you have all this stuff that was going good for you, but you're going to lose all of it in the midst of your greatest strength. being a port city, in other words. You have all these different merchants coming through. You have all this stuff going on. And you're going to lose all of it in the midst of the sea. That would be a metaphor for saying that you're going to lose everything even in the midst of your strength or what you're
No,
good
definitely
at.
was a good way to put it.
And then if we look at it from here into your section, $29 cannot be read by itself, can it?
Yeah, it was a
For your
continuation.
explanation, has a continuation
You
at
hear me?
the end.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
yeah. Does 30 have a continuation at the end?
Yep.
So where is the ending of that portion?
31.
31. So go ahead and reread 29 to 31, and we'll see what this metaphor is going into.
And all that handle the ore, he said.
Yep. What's an ore?
I haven't got to that. I do not know.
Okay. For time's sake, I'll tell you. An oar is the paddle with the long rod on it to where they
Okay.
could move the ship. That's what an oar is.
Okay.
So the
And
people
all
that
that
are actually rowing, in other words.
hmm and all that handle the ore, the mariners, and all the pilots of the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land, and shall cause their voices to be heard against thee, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast up dust upon their heads. They shall wallow themselves in the ashes, and they shall make themselves utterly bald for thee, and gird them with sackcloth, and they shall weep for thee with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. There's a
So
whole lot going on.
yeah. So if we look at that literal, that we had that contradiction just now. But if we look at it as metaphorical, and all the rowers and all the mariners, they're coming off the ship. So all the ships and everything, they all got destroyed metaphorically. So they're not even on the ships. They're not even in the midst of their strength no more. Now they're just on the land crying out. Now they're just on the land. So it's not, so in other words, metaphorically, it's not just the strength of you that's going to be crying out. It's a cry from the land in general. It's all bad, in other words. And then making themselves bald for thee. That's showing shame. Girding themselves with sackcloth. You remember what sackcloth is?
Yeah, something to cover up the loins with, right?
Yeah. Think like Tarzan.
Yep.
And they'll weep for thee with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. Notice there's something consistent through here, even in the metaphors. And there is, okay, let's say give that one possibility of it being literal, that 29 is talking about all the other merchants, not Tyrus's people, but separate merchants. That's a possibility for it to be literal and not a contradiction. But even on that side, everything is sadness, everything is bitterness. It's all wailing, it's crying out, it's yelling or screaming in pain. But then randomly in 28, the ground itself is shaking instead of shaking in fear, whether because of immediate fear or lasting fear. Do you see why I said that it's really not a possibility for it to mean the ground shaking in the context?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those times where it's so unlikely that it's like 0.1%. Yeah, technically you could say that, but it's so unlikely to be the case when we look at the surrounding context. There's no point of necessity to bring it up. The times where we want to bring up something as possibly being is if it's a legitimate possibility, or if there's some real, like, You know what I mean? Like if you were to say that it's most likely shaking in fear, which if you saw all this death and everything of your people in the midst of the sea, and you hear this crying, yeah, even in that situation, if that was literal, yeah, that shaking would be a freak out. It wouldn't most likely mean that we're talking about physical shaking of the ground. So that's just so unlikely, though it is a 1% possibility. But based on everything we're seeing here, it's not likely because of the fact of it saying at the sound of the cry of thy pilots. Well, would captains crying cause the ground to shake? No, not literally. But would it cause the shake as in metaphorically representing fear? Again, if you heard a cry in the sea and you heard a whole bunch of wailing or crying, depending on the person, that might freak you out. And that could be either initial or long term. And that's where haunted houses come in. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you ever walked in the middle of a dark area with no lights almost, and there's like bushes or trees or something around? You can start imagining things that aren't really there.
Yeah.
So that's why I say the fear is the only real option in based on the context.
I understand where you're coming from. My bad for holding up the study, y'all.
You
I
don't need
was
to
just
apologize.
curious about things.
Remember, you don't need to apologize if we have to take some extra time. Just if you can't see how, then you just got to say that you don't see how it does, and we can go further. But it's okay to take longer. That's what this whole thing is for. The only thing that's not okay is giving a bull script response like you did earlier, or unwilling to accept, and or just, yeah, basically what happened earlier. But if you need more time or need more explanation of how it explains that or how it goes that way, that's part of why we're here.
I don't
All
think it
right.
was the fact that I was unwilling to accept. It was the fact that I wasn't fully understanding. So I was still trying to understand, and you wanted me to just apologize to digress. But I was still trying to get an understanding.
I
So in
didn't
the
say
sense
you
of,
had to apologize.
you said you wanted to admit that I was wrong,
Yeah, that's not apologizing.
but I was still trying to get an understanding.
But that wasn't it because you said you can go ahead. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? You said, well, it
But
can't.
yeah,
Well, what about
go
this?
ahead.
And you went to Chat GPT and you went to some other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, look at what it said. You brought up something, but then you didn't take the context of what it said into account when you brought up fear and scared and how it said that fear was broader, but scared was more specific. I mean, and so there was
Immediate.
definitely a semblance of an unwillingness to accept the correct information. I mean, Charles, am I the only one seeing this? Did he seem like, is it just me seeing that he seemed like he didn't want to accept the accurate answer? That he wanted to be right? Or is that just me?
What was the term when you brought up the digress? When you bring up the I digress, then it sounds like you just that just sounds like you
Yeah.
give up on it
That's
and
like
then
saying, like, well, whatever, bro.
we'll come back to it another day instead of just fighting, not fighting, but getting through it to get the understanding. It's drop it and let's get back to it, or let's get back to it a different time, rather than just let's stick to it and let's get it, let's figure it out now. You see what I'm saying? Am I saying that wrong or?
Oh, you're
No,
right.
that was wrong.
I just don't see that as a bad thing because even if we got back to it later, it's not like I'm not being accepting to if I'm wrong or right.
Okay.
I just felt like I was
But
holding
it's
up the
but
Bible
no,
like,
Thomas. It's better to get the understanding now than to, because if you say we can come back to it later, what happens when you don't come back to it? You see what I'm saying? It's better to
oh,
just get it
oh,
now.
Matt's gonna call. Matt is going to call. You better
Well,
really.
no. Here's the thing. When you said I digress, that's like you saying, okay, if that's what you want, which is what you literally said also in it, almost word for word, not exactly word for word, almost word for word. You said that too. That's not a let's come back to it later, which is still wrong if we're trying to study together, because you're not the only one that will have this mistake. It's not fair to others that will listen to this later if they do, if you cut off an ability for somebody to learn. We had that conversation many times. But based on your responses, and even when you would bring something up, you weren't bringing it up to understand, you were bringing it up to try to say you were right. That's why I brought up the chat GPT thing you brought up. You even said almost in the same words, see, it says here that they could be different. Yeah, but how, in what way? And I even had to correct you and say, like, oh, like I said, we got to be able to pick it apart. You wanted to stop as soon as you had something to back up your point of view. You were trying to confirm your bias. You weren't trying to see what the truth was. And that action right there was that. And that's part of learning and growth.
No,
But that's
because
why
you had said I said let me read you this. He's like, yeah, as long as we're able to, dissect it and go through. I said, yeah, of course. So that
but
wasn't
then
me just trying to
after,
get that confirmation and end
but
it.
that's not the part I'm talking about. After you read it, you said, see this. And when it said that, it says that they're different. And then when I went to go to explain, you didn't let me explain it first. I said, hold up. I said, we're going to take it apart. We're going to pick it apart, right? And then we were able to go into it. But at first, you didn't want to get to that part. You said you were willing to, but then after you read it, you were stopping it.
I'm
I
not
had to
sure.
correct you in
I
that
would have to
moment.
listen back to that part.
That's
I think
fine.
that came before. I don't know.
No, it came after, because you said you would be willing to pick it apart, and then you read the part, and then when I went to go do the picking apart, you almost didn't want it to happen the way you were responding. And then I said, hold up, didn't we just say that we were going to pick it apart? I didn't use those exact words, but the concept of the words is what I used. Didn't we say that we're going to pick it apart? Yeah, go ahead and pick it apart. And then when I said, see, it's different, and then you said, yeah, but like scared, like every response was not, okay, but why do you say that it's the similarity? What about it is similar? What it's showing here that it's this, how can you say that it's the similar? You weren't probing to find out how it connects to understand my point of view. You were looking for something to confirm what you already thought to be true.
Hey, we got two different brains, bro. I'm not always going to respond how you would want for me to respond in a instance like this. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but like if I would have thought of that approach, I would have said that approach. But I'm genuinely here to learn. I even told you I don't understand, so just go ahead and let me know. I admitted it.
After we had gone through a lot, and the behavior you did in the middle of it was where it was different. Now, having different brains is not, that's completely irrelevant, because I'm not saying you have to use those words. The point I'm getting at is the concept. If you were really wanting to know and really trying to understand, rather than trying to confirm your bias or trying to say that you were right, there would have been a different approach entirely.
That's what I'm
Anything that
getting at.
but that's not a difference in way of thinking, that's a difference in priority.
Still
Charles and I've
applies
had to
to person,
it,
don't it? Person to person, right?
no, no, because your tact that you use is different than your priority. I'll give you a perfect example. If somebody wants to be in a monogamous relationship, that person can have a tact, or their tactician on getting women. It's very easy for them to talk to many women. But when they find somebody is not matching up with the desired lifestyle they want, they reject them. Versus somebody who is wants a polyamorous relationship. They want to have multiple people. That person can have the same exact tact, the same exact tactician type as the person who wants to be monogamous. But the difference is when they get to the point of getting the women interested, they get as many as they can get. You can have the same type of tactician with a different mindset. And you can have a different the same mindset and a different tactician. Two people want to know what the answer is to why the sky is blue. One person looks at the reflection on the water and realizes the similarity in color, and they assume it's a reflection on the ocean. The other person looks up in science books and looks to see what's been written about it, to see what other people have studied. Both of them are having a desire to find out the same exact thing, but doing a different tactician. So you can have both sides, but us having different brains has nothing to do with whether or not you have the same kind of tact. That's like saying with like people in Jersey. You and I and Charles, well, actually, I don't know if you have. I know Charles has. I'm pretty sure you have, because most of us have. But you ever met somebody from Jersey?
Yeah.
There's a few of them that are complete douchebags that have attitude problems, don't they?
Yeah.
And what do they always say when they get caught up for it? 90% of the time. Oh no, that's just how I didn't mean nothing by it. That's just how we are in Jersey. That's just how we speak in Jersey. That's how we talk in Jersey. But we've also met respectful people from Jersey too, haven't we? I mean, I have. Have you?
Yeah.
The people who are respectful from Jersey, they don't talk like that, do they? Not at
Nah.
all. So the claim of, well, we're different because we're from Jersey, it's just an excuse for the rudeness rather than admitting that they were rude. So having a different brain, having a different mentality says absolutely nothing about the way you choose to behave, about the way you choose to go and pursue things. That's all individual choice. And to top it off, if you say it's just your brain, what that means is it's something that you can't change. It's outside of your control. And that's not true either. Charles and I both could tell you from personal experience how much more anger we used to have, how much more argumentative we used to have. Matter of fact, you can probably tell from the amount of times I don't snap anymore when you guys are not understanding something that I don't even react the same way I used to. Nowhere near as easily, at least. I used to go off when you guys are misunderstanding something that I thought you should be able to understand. I don't do that no more. So to say that it's just a brain thing of yours, that's an excuse to not make the change. And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just a reactionary thing of self-defense. But it's definitely something you could change, and it's something you need to work on. You don't have to, and don't get me wrong, you don't have to sound exactly like me. You don't have to use the exact words I use. I'm not saying that. But you do have to have the same open heart to correction. You do have to have the same desire and effort to try to figure things out, because the Bible calls us to seek diligently. And the Bible calls us to be seekers of peace whenever possible. So, and the Bible calls us to rightly divide the word. Well, we can't do that if we're making excuses for our lack of desire to be figuring something out, or making excuses for our lack of desire to figure something out, or trying to swap it so it looks like we didn't make a mistake. And remember, making a mistake does not mean sinning. It just means you did something incorrect. But if we're unwilling to admit that, then what are we doing? Why are we studying? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? We can't pick and choose saying I'm willing to be corrected here, but I'm not willing to be in a row A, but I'm not willing to be corrected in row B, D, and Z. All the other ones, I'm good. Correct? Tell me what's right. I got you. I'll listen. I'm good. But I don't want those three corrected. We can't do that. And it's not a brain thing, it's a choice thing. And it's
No, man,
also
you're
a
right.
habit thing. And habits are meant to be broken if they're not good habits and rebuilt with good ones.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta break the heart to get to the soul.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now then, the only thing left, well, I mean, I kind of explained it, but do you want to get another chance to explain with the last section since I kind of explained yours?
I'm gonna hold off for today.
All right. Charles, do you want to get more practice in explaining the last one since I explained Thomas's?
You pretty much you had brought it up when you were going down the list. You already explained it.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, no, because we haven't gotten to the last one. We got one more to do. So I was like, since I
You
already,
mean the
I'm not the one.
last section?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you were
because
talking
I'm
about mine. My bad.
no, that's what I'm saying. Like since I explained yours, it's not really fair for your lack of practice. So it would be better for practice if you explained mine after I read
Yeah, I
it.
can give the other one a shot.
Okay.
My bad. I thought you were talking about this one.
No, no, no. I pretty much explained this one, so that's why it wouldn't be fair if like I didn't give you the chance to at least try on the last one. I mean, you got to get as much practice in as you can.
All right.
All right. So then I'll go ahead and read the last one, and then you can go ahead and explain.
Sounds good.
All right. Now, does anybody have any comments or questions about the last one before we read this one? That'll be the time to raise your hand. All right. Then I'll go ahead and read, and then Thomas, I'll give you the cue in and like, all right, go ahead when you're ready for your explanation of them. All right. In verse 33 to 36. Verse 33. When thy wares or wars went forth, I think that's wares, Juarez, whatever. When thy Juarez went forth out of the seas, thou fillest many people. Thou didst enrich the kings of the earth with the multitude of thy riches and of thy merchandise. In the time when thou shalt be broken by the seas, in the depths of the waters, thy merchandise and all thy company is in the and all thy company in the midst of thee shall fall. All the inhabitants of the isles shall be astonished at thee, and their king shall be sore afraid, and they shall be troubled in their countenance. The merchants among the people shall hiss at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt be any more. Couple of words for explanation's sake. Start off with wars or wares, whichever that is.
All right. Let me go to it. In the sense of letting go for a price that is selling trade. The people that are doing like the bartering.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 33. It sounds like to me that the Kings are going to lose a lot. They lost a lot of money and a lot of riches at the bottom of the sea.
No,
When thy warriors went forth out of the sea, thou fillest many people. Thou didst enrich the king of the earth
there you go.
with the
What does it mean
multitude
to enrich?
to make them more rich.
There you go. Good.
Hold on. So let me read this one more time. When thy warriors went forth out of the sea, thy fillest many people. Thou didst enrich the kings of the earth with the multitude of thy riches and of thy merchandise. So they gave
To the kings?
Not
The merchants?
gave. You are correct about the tense. It is past tense, but gave is not the right word. Is giving you money the only way to make you rich or to enrich you?
Oh, they sold to the kings.
There you go. So when you went out bartering, you filled up many people. You made a bunch of kings rich.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So
So
then
what would that be in reference to then? That we've read recently.
what would it be reference to?
Or I should say could. What could that be reference to that we read recently?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
All right. Charles?
That we've read recently. You're not talking about how when we brought up the supply, the gold, the silver, all the precious stuff that they were able to
Yeah,
bring.
all the merchants that were able to buy from them and buy in their land, buy and sell in their land. You made a whole bunch of people rich by allowing that and setting that up.
Okay. In the fairs, or is that just
Mm-hmm.
okay?
No, that was correct.
Okay, so we got that going on, making the kings richer. And then 34, I'm gonna read that. In a time when thou shalt be broken by the sea in the depths of the water, thy merchandise and all thy company in the midst of thee shall fall. So when this is taking place, the time when this takes place, um, everything is just gonna go to crap pretty much because of it, and they're gonna lose a lot in the sea.
Yeah.
All right.
So this does add a little bit more context to the earlier section, though. Remember when we said about the shaking? Even if the other parts were literal, that still wouldn't make sense for the shaking to be literal. That would make more sense for it. Look at these comparisons that we have. We're having a bunch of literal things that are also comparing to metaphorical emotions, even with literal. So, why bring up that when they had this, they were making everybody rich? What's the point of saying that,
Because
Thomas?
when they had it, ain't got it no
Yeah,
more.
yeah. By pointing that out, it's a literal thing that's used for a metaphor. You're taking a literal statement that they were making them rich and talking about how it's in the past. You're metaphorically stating that that ain't going to happen no more. Or not metaphor, metaphor is the wrong word, but you're expressing that that's not what's happening anymore or not what's going to happen by pointing that out. In the same token with what we read in the last one, you got all of them crashing in the sea, and then you got the suburbs are shaking. Well, if they hear all the crying in the sea and the suburbs are shaking, it doesn't make sense for it to be literal shaking, but it does make sense for fear, like shaking in fear, different kinds, whether immediate or what have you. Now, if we talk about it from the long-term fear, you're noticing all this destruction. That could have a tone of fear for like, well, if that's happening to them, what's happening? What's going to happen to us? Or it could be on the immediate side. You hear the screams, you start freaking out from hearing the screams. So on either side, even with that literal, if this is literal, we still see the same concept. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we're getting literal stuff that's used to express non-literal things. But go ahead and then in the same part with 34. In that time when thou shalt be broken by the seas, that makes the breaking in the seas, that makes it sound like that's literal too, right?
Yep.
So it could be that the breaking in the seas was the people and everything of Tyrus, and that, like I said, the other possibility, the people that are coming off the ships is not the people of Tyrus and the stuff in Tyrus, but it's all the merchants that are coming through. Everybody else. All right, continue on.
Then it goes in to talk about all the people that lived in the islands. They're gonna be astonished by what is taking place. Hold on. And
Mhm.
the kings should be sore afraid. They should be troubled in their consequences. Countenance. Okay, so we have the people in the islands. Let's see what's going on. And they're like, bro, this is crazy. And the kings are afraid, and it's showing all over their face.
Not just afraid.
And they're afraid and troubled.
No,
And
troubled is less in the way we look at it than even afraid. It says sore afraid.
so very afraid, pretty much.
There you go. That would work better.
So the
Because
kings
if
would
you
be
say
very,
afraid and troubled, like if you look at which one is more extreme in our day and age, which one's more extreme? If you're troubled, you feel a little bit, but if you're afraid, it's a little bit more than troubled. If you're freaking out, you're way more than troubled.
yeah. So we got the kings very afraid and are troubled because of everything that's taking place, and you could just see it all over their face that they not
Good.
happy. And 36, the merchant among the people shall hiss at thee. Thou should be a terror, never shall be anymore. So the merchants just like, man, we came down here thinking we about to make a lot of money selling to y'all and all this happens. And now we losing merchandise that we ain't never selling to y'all again. Pretty
Well,
much.
nah, not. Where did it say a terror in there? For selling to them.
And never shall be anymore. So I'm taking it as they ain't gonna sell to them no more because what took place. They came from these different areas, right?
No, because if for something to not be anymore, is that the same thing as saying something is not being sold anymore?
No.
And you're forgetting the part of the context where it went into it.
Let me read
That's
that one more
not
time.
part of the. Yep.
The merchants among the people shall hiss at thee like cats. Thou shalt be a terror and never shall be any more.
Mm-hmm. Who's gonna be never not anymore?
The people being sold to, correct?
No. What does thou
Oh,
mean?
the merchant. Oh, sorry, the merchants.
No. Okay, don't just guess. If you're not sure, you're to say you're not sure. It's okay to not be sure. What does
Let
thou
me figure.
mean?
You,
Yeah. And who are we talking to at this time?
Cyrus.
There you go.
So Tyrus should be a terror and never shall be any more. So
Exactly.
Tyrus is gonna be Donzo.
There you go. Exactly. You're not even going to exist no more, in other words.
To be sold to.
Ah, where did it say that?
Let me just shut my.
Well, because it's okay to have those thoughts, but you gotta before you start answering as it, you gotta think: does it match with the context?
I was the
What,
only reason why I said that is because I thought about when God was saying, "Oh, they won't be able to be built back up." So if they are no more, then they can't obviously be sold to because they're no more. That's why I
well,
said that.
not that does make sense, except for the fact of if you're not being anymore, let's say you're not existing anymore. Can you be built back up?
No.
Exactly. So it's not necessary.
To say, okay.
See, it would be different if it said, thou shalt not be a place of merchandise anymore, or something, thou shalt not be a place of fairs, something to point out about that. But if you say thou shalt not be anymore, that's literally saying you're not going to exist. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, why would the merchants then, in that case, why would it point out that the merchants will hiss at thee? Why would the merchants hiss at you? Thomas,
I'm not sure.
do you know what hissing is?
Like I said, I think of a cat, like a cat when trying to like a warning, like, hey, get away.
No, not like that. Close. Like if you were going to talk about a cartoon cat, yeah, like Sylvester. Like when you put your teeth to your bottom lip and you breathe,
I don't know.
that's hissing. Huh?
I'm listening.
Like if you like I was doing that for you to do it so you can see what I'm saying. Like put your teeth, your top teeth to your bottom lip and breathe in like a suction almost, but with your mouth open.
Okay.
That's like hissing. Notice the facial expression you make when you're doing that. It's like you're snarking at somebody.
Uh, I thought of something else, but it's not PG-13. Leave that alone. That's what girls
So
do.
yeah, something we got to get past, something to work on. But in the moment, yeah. So that's like hissing. So here, why would they be hissing then? Let me give Charles a chance, and then I'll give the answer. If not, or actually one of the answers, because there's many reasons, but there's a couple major ones that it could be.
Based off of what we
Charles,
read, can you hear
yeah,
me?
yeah.
Based off what we got into, you're talking about a reference to like because of everything going on, they're just bad for Tyrus is bad for business. That's why I'm hissing at you. There's nothing I can do. I'm
Yeah.
already terrified. I'm already in fear. I'm already we done already talked about the crying and all that. You guys are just completely bad for business. That's just my like long story short kind of thing. If that makes sense.
You're not wrong, but I feel like the bad for business is too specific and
Oh, okay. I thought
unnecessary.
that was broad.
Because, like, imagine this. Oh, actually, you know what? You guys have probably dealt with this before. You ever been to a mall that used to have everybody show? Oh, you know what? Actually, Charles, I know you dealt with this when going back to Pittman and seeing how empty the park is when nobody when nobody's at the
no,
basketball court
no
no more.
child is outside. No one
Yes.
plays. No one does nothing. It is a literal desert town.
Yeah. And you look at it and you have this sort of hesitation, like, really, bro? If we was out here doing this whole thing all the time, no one's here.
Full court basketball court with the lights still on, and y'all don't
Yeah.
play. Y'all don't hoop. That don't make sense.
And whether you mean to or not, you kind of look down on it a little bit if you really think about it. It was like, dang, like this city
All these
really went to
facilities.
crap.
Yeah. They
Thomas, you
added
probably
more
had it,
stuff than what we had, and it's still deserted. I feel
and it
they
still does it.
added
Yeah,
they added like a workout thing for like outdoor workouts and like muscle beach type thing, but no one's
yeah.
outside. That's crazy.
See, Thomas, you probably had a situation like that before, where you go back to a place that you everything used to be going amazing, and you go back and you're dead empty there, and you're like, bro, this place has really gone to crap.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much what's going on with the merchants. This is this place where everybody came to do their sales. It was the meeting place. It was the spot. It was the back of the school bus. It was the part in the bleachers. It was the part where people used to like where all the cool kids met, and now there's nobody there. So they show up getting off, and they're wailing and they're crying out. And they're looking at this like, wow, this has really gone to crap. That's pretty much what it's getting at. Do you see what I'm saying? Thomas and Charles.
Sure.
Oh yeah. I got it. I'm glad you had to say our names. I got you.
Yeah, my bad. Because I was like, I forgot. I was like, I did just talk to both of y'all. I should specify that I mean for both of y'all. All right, so so good job on that part, Thomas. You only had a couple slip ups, but that was better than the second one. Um, yeah, a better job on that one. Now, one last thing I want to point out before we pray it out. It's interesting here. We still don't have the same thing as among the Ammonites as we did here. What was the difference between what we have read here versus what was the punishment for the Ammonites? Charles?
Wasn't it the Ammonites will be their existence will be blocked from history versus y'all just can't versus Tyrus, you just won't have to be able you won't be able to sail at the not sail, I'm sorry, you won't be able to do all your merchandising and all that at the coast. One is you're going to be completely wiped. We won't remember you ever. And then one is we'll take away your merchandise and what makes you so great, what makes you so beautiful.
You're close. You're close. You're right on the edge. Thomas?
Okay.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
All right. You're right about the Ammonite part. You're wrong about this part. Remember, we just read, and never shall be anymore. You're no longer going to exist. So it's not that they're not going to be able to do merchandise, they're not going to exist anymore. But that's still not the same as saying not only you're not going to exist, you're not going to be remembered. You're going to be wiped from history. That's the difference. Both of them are gone, but one is gone from history and existence, whereas the other one is just gone from current existence. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Now then, I'll go ahead and pray us out from the Bible study portion. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for this time that you've given us to be able to read your word, to be able to understand, and to be able to go in depth, as today was more of a personal studying and Bible studying than it was about the specific verses that we are reading. And we just pray as we go forward that we're able to see and understand not just our self corrections, but also the growth that there is to be had, and to be able to continue to grow in peace and family as what you're building us up to be. In your son's holy and precious name, Jesus Christ Yeshua. Amen.
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 All right. So for tomorrow or today's Bible listening, today is the 20th. So Deuteronomy chapter 9 to 22. Again, that's Deuteronomy chapter 9 to 22.
Got it.
Got it.
And then Charles, do you want to go ahead and go first? Oh no, Thomas, you're sounding more tired than Charles is. Do you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Hold on, I'm looking for my pen real quick.
Never mind,
All
Charles. No,
right.
I'm just playing. Go ahead, Thomas.
Let me just write this down. 9:22. All right. So I got about three of them, but they're all within the same chapter. It was just hidden.
hmm
All right, let me look at the chapter real quick. Deuteronomy 5. My first one is 7 through 10.
I knew that was gonna be on there, bro. I knew it
Thou,
was.
thou shalt have none other God before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children of unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. That one was I thought was a good one. Here
Okay.
he is speaking to Moses and the children of Israel. And then we go ahead and jump over to
Oh,
16.
what was it about that stuck out to you, do you think? Or what did you want to add or say about it?
Oh, it's just about God being the only God, and we shouldn't have no other graven images or no
Okay.
idolatry towards other gods and anything like that. And I stand on that to
Charles,
my
did you have
last breath.
anything was that one of the ones for you?
No, that's the verse I
Okay.
told you where I have it stuck in my brain now. It's one of the ones where I told you I never thought I would ever remember a verse and can go to it and break it down in reference to. Now that one is just burned in my brain now.
Yeah, I'll feel it. All right, then go ahead and continue, Thomas. Actually, no, wait, I was gonna say, let me say two things. Two parts that stick out about that portion for me. One, this is why we can't wear crosses. There's nothing in the New Testament that says we can have engraven images or carvings of things of heaven or earth in relation to worship. This is what I always trace back to, this concept. Well, if God doesn't want any imagery used in the form of worship, then why would we have crosses? Why would we have statues of Jesus? Why would we have fish? Why would we have things that are specifically related to worship? Or as in Catholicism, rosaries.
Yep.
So that's one part. The second part is this is the verse that backs up the point that Jesus is God. If you don't have this verse section or the other ones that are like it, you can't back up Jesus being God as easily. But this makes it so simple because it puts it in a very specific position. They bowed to Jesus in worship. We read it multiple times in the New Testament, multiple places. So you only have two choices there. Either one, Jesus is an idol, idolatry, which would make him a sin, or Jesus would have to be God because of that. It's the only way. All right, go ahead and continue to your second one, Thomas.
When we start doing that, Matt.
He said, what?
When we start doing that,
Doing what?
I thought we would just finish them all first, and then you chime in.
That was one of mine I was going to bring up. That's why.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes a
If
lot
it's,
more sense.
yeah, because I was like, if it was something so like prevalent that it was like I thought more people would have it, then I was like, okay, well, we don't want to be saying the same thing again and again. So might as well, if it's the same one, I was just thinking, might as well like get it out. Yeah,
No, then that was perfect.
yeah.
All right, so next one
Thank
is
you for
five.
stealing one of mine.
Ooh, I hope I get one of Charles's too. I'm tired of you stealing mine, Charles. 5:16. Honor that this is what I say to my son all the time when he ain't listening and behaving. Honor thy father and mother as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. That sorry, thinking about it makes you crack up. That thy days may be prolonged and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God given thee. Obviously, he's talking about children of Israel and just honoring their mothers and fathers. But I use this in reference to my son when he's not behaving. So Isaiah, you gotta honor thy mother and thy father, and your days will be long, bro, prolonged.
Hmm.
And
Also,
the
Thomas,
last,
this is a good verse for explaining the point that our days are not set in stone.
I love
You,
that.
you can't prolong your days if your days are set in stone.
Man, I love that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Hmm.
Isaiah, I'm almost done. Then the last one here, 5:33. Ye shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God hath commanded you, that ye may live, and that it may be well with you, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess. Just
And what's
walk
that
into
got about that?
according to God's willing way for your life, man. And like you just
Nice.
said, our days are not set in stone. So we do that, it could potentially prolong your life.
Well, that one was different. You were you were doing good. That one said prolong your days in the land.
I know he's speaking to the children of Israel.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I said that, no?
Nope.
Oh, that was it.
You heard when I said about the prolonging the days on the first one, which just says prolonging the days. And then this one, you went to the same thing, but no, this one says prolong the days in the land. That's different.
True.
You'll live longer versus you'll live longer here.
Yep.
All right. Charles,
There we go. I wrote a bunch down, but I'll just shorten it.
keep it to three.
Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 20 to 25. You'll get the gist when I read the first two. Verse 20. And when thy son asketh thee in the time to come, saying, what mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God hath commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, we were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And he's going into basically the kid, your son, daughter, whatever your children are going to do. They always ask that question of why. Why I got to follow these rules? Why I got to follow? They're always going to ask that. All kids do this, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
he within this reference, the kids are asking the dad of the children of Israel, well, why the commandments? Why these judgments? Why? Son, sit down. We were slaves under Pharaoh and under Egypt and all that, and God saved us, and God did all boom, 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 boom. You're going to break down what God did, saving you away from Egypt, leading you through the wilderness, all of these things. You're going to break all these things. You're going to answer the why, basically. That's what 20 to 25 was for me, is the father sitting the son down and telling them why after a kid asks that question. I got Deuteronomy 7 verses 1 to 4. um it's made me laugh because I won't even read it. It just talks about how you don't want to let your son marry these women and the Jebusites, the Ammonites. Don't let your son marry these women in other nations. Here, I'll say this: for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. As soon as I read that, or soon not read, but as soon as I heard it, I thought of Solomon. That was the
Yeah.
first thing that came up to my mind, was because Solomon was good until he had all these wives from all these different lands with all these different gods. The first thing that came up was King Solomon for that one. Um, and the last one I want to bring up is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 5. Um, and I actually saved this, so I forgot I saved this. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chastise his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. I don't want to play scripture buffet by just picking that one, but I thought to myself, man, I really don't want to punish you, boy. And then I'm hearing this faint voice in the background, Charles, I don't want to punish you either. But I got to. But I have to because
Same with my son. I have to punish you. That faint voice in the background that I'm hearing, I have to punish you, Charles. After you're done punishing your son, I got to get you. Because you done messed up. That's what I was thinking about. God will chastise us just like we will chastise our kids. So that's what I got. That's my quick one.
Good. All right. Now mine, I can only say two because Thomas took one. So Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 32 to 39 stuck out for me for one. Let me go back to that. Yet in this thing ye did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you to search out a place. This is the part where it brings up about who's going to get the inheritance and why and who's dying, and how Joshua and Caleb were the only ones who actually believed in God in the midst of seeing the giants in these lands. And he was bringing it up, and he said in 41, and they said in response, we have sinned against the Lord. And that stood out to me too, not just because they were the only ones that followed, but also it is a sin to doubt God in something that he's already proved himself for. And that's something we don't think about. When God has shown you that he answers prayers, when God has shown you that he's there for you if you follow him, it's actually sinful to doubt him. And let me just say this, Charles, if I have been helping you whenever you needed something and you're in a time of trouble and you're afraid to ask me for help, how do you think that would make me feel?
Why would you? Yeah, you gonna feel some kind of way. Why should I
I'm
be
gonna feel,
afraid?
yeah, I'm gonna feel some kind of way. You already know the way that I work. You already know I've already done so much, and you're questioning me. It's almost like everything I didn't matter. It's almost like disrespecting everything I've done for you in that example. So it's understandable why that would consider that a sin when they said that we've done wrong, we've sinned because of that. And then the other one was in chapter 3 in 23 to 26. And in there, and it said, and I besought the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, thou hast begun to show thy servant thy greatness and thy mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or in earth that can do according to thy works and according to thy might? I pray thee, let me go over and see the good land that is beyond the Jordan. That had me laughing many times going through this, because this is Moses after he's already been told, because you didn't sanctify me in front of the children of Israel, because he was told to strike the rock in one part. And a different point, he was told to speak, but he was told to strike a rock. Struck the rock. It said because he didn't sanctify God in the midst of the children of Israel. So you don't get to see the promised land. But now they're on the edge of the river Jordan. They're about to go over to so they can start the wars and take it. And Moses is like, God, I know you said, I know you said I don't get to go, but you've been so good to me. You've taken care of me in so many ways. You've shown me your greatness. You've shown me your might. Pretty please, can I go? Please, can I go? And God got pissed in 26. But the Lord was wroth with me for your sakes and would not hear me. And the Lord said unto me, let it suffice thee. Speak no more unto me of this matter. Look, deal with it. I don't want to hear nothing else about this. That's what God told Moses. He said, I'm done. Shut up. Go to your room. You're in timeout. And it's funny too because it's like when you think of a dad punishing his son, like not just on the fact of don't want to, but Thomas, you've been in positions, I guarantee it, where Isaiah, you're trying to get him to do the right thing, and he irritates you because he ain't trying to go to the punishment. I guarantee it's happened before. And you're like, no,
Absolutely.
enough. I said what I said. I don't care what you got to say. Now go to timeout now. Oh, man.
Yep.
Right, Thomas? Yeah. And so it's just so funny because we get the concept of God treating us as his children, but that was one of the times where he literally was talking to Moses like his son who's on punishment. Like literally dealing with him like his son is on punishment. Please, Dad, can I go to the store? I know you said I can't go because I wasn't listening, but I'm really sorry. And it's not even my fault. It was my little brother's fault. Please? I said no. So, anyways, that's it for mine. So, now, do you guys have anything you want to add or say before we close it out? All
No.
right. All right, then I'll go ahead and close it out. Y'all have a good night.